Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. So as you can see, we've got a special guest this week, Lewis, who is actually our EFL guy, but he's also on a Game Week 30 wildcard. Lewis, how are you first of all? And then we'll obviously get onto your wildcards. But how are you getting along first, generally?
Yes, I'm very well. Thank you, Scott. Life's all good. It's nice actually to have a bit of an FPL break. Obviously, EFL keeps rocking and rolling in the midst of a blank game week. There's a double game week, which is absolutely bonkers to think about. But no, it's good. Everything's all good. FPL has been so after a few weeks of some turmoil, we had a bit of a green arrow, which was nice, and obviously then wild carding. That's right. So it's all happening now. I've got 2 weeks to decide, which feels really scary because it feels like lots of those moves could change quite drastically. But yeah, here we are. It's going well. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, mate. Yeah, really good. We've actually just filmed the EFL podcast as well. So if you are into EFL, the best thing about EFL, by the way, the little plug for it, I wouldn't normally do it, but I will do a little plug, is that this week's the international breaks. There's obviously no FPL, but there is EFL because there's still League One and League Two games, and actually still a double game week as well. So if you do want to play next year, I would recommend it. It genuinely is a really good game. And Lewis heads up our team in terms of that, and he's brilliant. So, do that. I shouldn't really say that. I should slag you off a bit. But first of all, what I want to get into with the wildcard is, why this week? What is it about this week that makes you think this is the one when I trigger the only button you can do, twice every year? What is it that makes you think Game Week 30 wildcard is the one?
And it was a scary thing to do, Scott, to start with, and it's worth saying that in itself. Pressing that button, I sat there for hours with the window open, umming and ahhing, constantly backwards and forwards, and then we had to do it. I think first and foremost, the key thing with it is about how your team was set up. And my team going forwards was in a bit of a dreary place. That there were lots of issues. There was lots of rotation problems. I didn't have an active goalkeeper. And my money was just not spread out right. And I think I was at that point where I needed to do it. But I also think that during an international break, it's a great time to wildcard because you can reset and actually you can jump on some of those price rises. So there have been some players that I've picked already that I've already earned some serious cash on simply because I picked them early, which is fantastic. So that's been a bit of a bonus in itself. But also just that I think my team was just in need of a bit of a shake-up. And there are quite a few fixture swings now. We've seen some teams that are coming into form, some teams that are sort of fading away a bit. So those were sort of the key reasons why. But I targeted this for weeks. I knew Game Week 30, March, international break, is happening.
But you've also got it's a really good time in terms of Newcastle. I think after their cup final win, obviously at the weekend against your team, which was rather funny, but that's regardless of the point. But yeah, I think that they look like a real team to target. Obviously got Brentford at home in Game Week 30. And people like me, obviously, who are not on a Game Week 30 wildcard, I don't even have Isaac and I don't have any Newcastle, so that could really harm me. And obviously you getting on them early. And I think the other thing that because we've just actually filmed the sort of FPL podcast that we do on Space every week, which is at 1 PM if you do want to join us for that. Me and Lewis basically just argue for an hour. It's pretty good. Not joking. Obviously the other benefit is that if you're on a Game Week 31 or 32 wildcard, like I probably am going to be, you can jump on players that are probably going to be buying the same players anyway in Game Week 31 and 32, but you can probably get them a lot cheaper. You might save yourself 0.3, 0.4 on some players. And obviously throughout the team, over that massively can add up. You can save yourself a couple million. That obviously gets you some more premium assets potentially as well. So I never hate an early wildcard, and I think it probably is a early wildcard in 30. I think people probably will go 31 and 32 for the most part. But yeah, I don't hate it. But let's actually, while we're here, let's get on to the actual team, shall we? So we'll start with your two goalkeepers and your defenders, and then we'll move through the ranks, shall we?
Nice.
So let's slide on to the next scene. So there we are then. So your two goalkeepers are Raya and Areola. We'll start there. First of all, Raya, what is the reasoning behind David Raya? And why is he the best keeper right now for wildcard potentially?
Now, this was really difficult, Scott, because I needed a few Arsenal assets, or at least one, I should say. And for a long time, I had Gabriel, again, jumped on the price rise early, up to 6.4 million, happy days. Now, funnily enough, obviously, and this always seems to happen, not always, but often, that he is, of course, the cheapest asset into the Arsenal back four and goalkeeper, of course. But he's the highest scorer, 117 points. And I just think I was umming and ahhing about Yuri and Timber for 0.1 million more, but I don't know. There was something about the fact that he was cheaper and it meant that my other moves lined up. That was genuinely the key reason. I like Gabriel and I like the upside over the attacking returns. But I haven't had Raya all season, and I've not really had a premium keeper at all. And I think this, going into the tail end of the season, this is the optimal opportunity to go for someone like that. So I went for Raya purely on that basis, based on just being slightly cheaper than the others. And then Areola was just because he was a playing goalkeeper at 4.2 million. I had Fabianski, who was starting and now isn't starting, so I moved him onto Areola. Again, I'm not thrilled by it. I just like the fact he's going to play. There are a couple of games, though, that I can play him. I think Southampton at home in 33 seems all right. And if West Ham have a double, that could actually pay dividends. So those are the two real reasons for the keepers. I know there have been quite a few options in terms of, you can pick Henderson and X and they'll rotate together. I wasn't so fast. I just wanted someone that was a staple in the team, and then someone that could fill in with a potential double here or there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think the interesting thing with the Raya thing, because obviously you picked up on it in terms of the not going with Gabriel. And Gabriel's attacking returns have dried up a bit. I mean, I was on a video with Joe on Monday and we were sort of talking about how they have dried up. And I think if they have dried up at 6.4 million now, and you can get Raya for 5.5, that 0.9 million saving, plus Massive. It obviously allows you to get an extra defender where you potentially could get attacking returns. Like I look at obviously your defence, which we will get onto, like Muniz and stuff, or Munoz, should I say. It obviously is such a better option to get in the Crystal Palace defence with the attacking returns he gives you compared to like Dean Henderson. So I think that, I do like that, and I think Areola, obviously, if he does get that double game week as well, could be a really good pick to sort of have a double game week playing goalkeeper. I think that's really nice. I also think Areola's playing quite well at the moment. Every time I watch West Ham, he seems to be playing right well. But yeah, let's move on to the defence anyway, and let's start with Munoz. I think he's an obvious one, but talk me over the reasoning there.
Yeah, he was the standout for me. Maybe he was probably the one that I went to first of all the defenders. To be honest, I actually changed my entire defence. There's only 3 players of this entire 15 that are the same. So the majority have changed. Munoz, obviously, ridiculous attacking threat. He's been fantastic going forwards in that Palace team. I just think the way that they play, it's like free-flowing football. It's a joy. It's genuinely just a joy to watch them. And I think even if the defensive returns aren't always necessarily there, I think he's a great option. And again, that Southampton game, I had to target him. It's hurt me a few times. I haven't had Palace all season, and I've wanted them for weeks, but just had other issues. And I just thought I need to get him in. And a price rise actually might help potentially if he does go up with Southampton next. You could easily see an assist there, maybe a clean sheet as well. I'm hoping for bonus points potentially. For me, he's the staple in that team, and he was an obvious one to go for.
Yeah, his attacking returns have just been ridiculous. Like I remember watching Palace win away at Man United a few weeks ago, 2-0, probably about a month ago now actually. And like they're holding on obviously for a 1-0 naturally. And yet Munoz he's flying forward in like the 90th minute. He obviously picks up an assist for Mateta's second goal. And you just he's almost playing like a right winger. And I think his attacking returns, especially with the Palace defence as well, which I think they've still got the second best defence away from home in the division as well. And obviously Palace have been pretty decent at home. Obviously picked that clean sheet up recently against Ipswich. I agree. I think he's probably the standout defender. But let's look at some of the other ones. So Rico Lewis, I think he's a questionable one, I think, which I do want to query on, just because of like the minutes. Is it just more like for him, it's just like you can't really fog Vardy on, it's a bit of a punt?
Yeah, that's it, to be honest. I think with their injury situation, I am expecting Lewis to probably play at least against Leicester, and that's my reasoning for it. I think the key thing is just looking at the upside of a short-term move, really. That Leicester game, I think they're nailed on for a clean sheet. He's probably going to get 60 minutes. You'd at least hope, right? There of course, is some concern, and there always will be with Pep. But I am optimistic given the Akanji situation, Stones, Ake, all those, and I don't see him being rotated for at least for the foreseeable future. So that would be one, and then otherwise, really, it was kind of about cheap players to get in defence. But I guess we can break those down. So like the likes of Dan Burn again. Not necessarily the most attacking or exciting centre back in the world, but I think offers a good route into their defence. Obviously, that Dublin 32 is appealing as well. So he's a good option, and of course he did score against us, which was fantastic. So that's another great reason to bring him in. But he's always a threat from set pieces. That's why
he's also good because he can play a number of positions. Like he sort of he can fill in at left back. Played at left back for a while, and obviously fills in at centre back a lot of the time as well. So yeah, I don't mind him. I think for me, potentially Livramento might be slightly better. I know he hadn't actually had an attacking return yet all season, Livramento, so maybe I'm talking sort of nonsense really. But I just watch him in the cup final. And I just think there's a route there for attacking returns. But I appreciate you going with Dan Burn. Next up, then obviously Mikolenkovic. He obviously got 2 attacking returns against Ipswich. Didn't pick up the clean sheet, but did get 2 attacking returns. Are you sort of expecting more? I think, to be fair, Man United, you're probably expecting a clean sheet potentially as well. What's your reasoning behind Mikolenkovic?
Yeah, I had Aina in there originally, and I like Milenkovic. I think the key reason again is about money. Really, that 0.5 million saves me loads. And again, talking of the sort of the drying up of attacking returns, the fact that he's in his last 4, he's got 3 goal contributions. I mean, it's good going. The fixtures look great. I like the fact that he's only got 9% ownership. I think I always like a player that's slightly less owned for the upside of moving up the ranks and trying to outmatch or not match managers in my league, trying to find some differentials in there. Yeah, Ola Aina's ownership at nearly 30%. I wanted to look elsewhere, so that was the key reason. And then Dara O'Shea's just for the bench. Literally, there's no rhyme or reason for picking him. I just had to pick someone that was 3.9 that is playing every week. That was the key for him.
Right, let's move on to the midfield then. Love what I've done, by the way, here. Bit of credit of my own, where we slip in and now the midfield just reappears. I mean, clever. Technology these days, Lewis, it's really something, isn't it? I mean, that is just crazy work. I'm joking, by the way. It's the most basic thing in the world, obviously. But yeah, let's talk about the midfield anyway. Let's start with Justin Kluivert. I think a lot of people will go there with him. Ipswich at home. He looks pretty good, doesn't he, to be honest? Let's be honest with that. If we're calling a spade, are we looking at Justin Kluivert?
Oh, top player. Yeah, I think he is their main attacking asset. There's no question. I had Dango for a while, which obviously did work prior to the Evan Ilson sort of returning from injury. Now those minutes were there. I had to get him out. Kluivert, I've wanted Kluivert all season, and I think he's a really dangerous asset in terms of from an explosive point of view. I think, I wouldn't be shocked towards the end of the season if he gets another massive haul like he did against Newcastle, that 22-point masterclass. We saw the 20-point haul against Wolves. It wouldn't surprise me that in the remaining fixtures if he picks up some really big scores. So he was obvious, and obviously on pens was kind of the key reason for that as well.
Salah, should we gloss over? I mean, everyone's going to have him. Yeah. We will look when we sort of look at your attack. We might look at sort of captaincy, obviously for game week 30. But I generally think I generally think we avoid Salah completely. But let's move on to Bruno. He's obviously one of them is the Europa League, but he got a hat trick in the Europa League, and then obviously got 2 goals and an assist, so a hat trick of returns again, way at Leicester. But the fixtures are not looking as good in the next few. But are you sort of picking him based on just his form right now, really?
Yeah, I think it's all form. I think when you look at his returns, he's just been ridiculous. And the key thing for me about that team, and I guess it kind of ties into the wild card really, is that there just aren't that many midfielders that I am really thrilled by. And I think the prospect of say if I was to upgrade potentially and look at someone like a Saka, well, he's not at full fitness yet. There's some concern around that. And obviously even about the doublers, I'm still not really sure. So Bruno in his form, he is going to drag Man United through the rest of the season, hoping potentially for a top 10 finish, winning the Europa League, you'd expect. And And he's their main asset. I think he's been underrated, I would say, in not only throughout the season, but in recent weeks, really, of scoring. And my concern, obviously, is that the next few don't look very good. Forest, City, and Newcastle. I'm not thrilled by that, but you've got to pick players when they're in form, right? And he is just the man at the moment that's been flying for United. If they're going to score, it's him. So that was kind of the key reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean about sort of form, because I mean I've talked about this in sort of depth recently on the podcast, and obviously I think on the video Monday I mentioned it. But there is, I think, especially for sort of midfielders and attackers, picking players when they're hot is so important. I think defenders are a bit more different because you obviously pick points up based on a team performance. Like it's got to be a clean sheet is a team performance, but obviously you get an individual points for that. But I think with attacking returns, obviously it's so much more solo based. If a player's playing really well, like they could, an attacking player could lose. They could lose the game 4-3 and score a hat trick, and he gets a ridiculous return. Yeah. Whereas obviously with a defender, it's much more sort of you picking the team, I think. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Bruno for me, even though the fixtures are poor, like Man City at home, they concede loads of goals anyway. Forest's defence hasn't been as tight as it once was. I think people will avoid because of the fixtures, but I agree. I don't hate it at all. Even though they've got Chelsea, haven't they? I think coming up as well in that run, and I don't hate that fixture either. So yeah, I like it. Moving on to Alanga, 5.3 million still, but did manage a massive 16 points away at Ipswich. Presumably, you wanting the same against Man United, and sort of is that the reason? Is it because of the sort of him being on hot form as well with that 16 pointer?
Yeah, it is. It is, to be honest. I think the other key thing is that I just couldn't get to Gibbs White, and I'm not so sure. You know, we saw Elanga against Ipswich playing that sort of number 10 role. Gibbs White slightly deeper. I like him sort of cutting in. And actually, I think he's shown some real versatility in that. I think he was sort of maybe set out for a while as an out-and-out winger, but actually he's not. I think he offers real scope to that Forest attack really across the front three, rather than playing in the 9 role. And I like the idea of having someone like that in the team who is versatile, but also his price. I think it's hard to argue against someone who's in great form. But also just about the issue is Chris Wood, Scott. That was the key issue. Just having those 3 strikers and not being able to squeeze in Chris Wood. I needed a Forest attacker. Not so sure on Hudson-Odoi, so Elanga was the one for me.
And then finally, let's talk about Sarr, who again, like Elanga, I think this is sort of a testament to what your team is really. You have targeted players who've just been recently performing really well, and Sarr has been as well. What is the reason again, sort of similar to Milan's in terms of them fixtures? They've obviously got a double game week coming up. Am I on the right lines there?
Oh, spot on. Absolutely. I think there is now my one of the key things, and I think it's worth caveating, is that I think if Mateta was fully fit, I wouldn't have Sarr in there. I think that'd be a different conversation. But given the sort of the question marks around his return, and I know there is some talk that he'll be back for the FA Cup game and then from then on, I just think Sarr's nailed for minutes. He's in unbelievable form for them, and he just looks like I think under Glasner, he looks like he's looked really sharp. He's at the transform player. You know, we saw that at Watford at times when he was just absolutely electric, and it's a similar story in recent weeks. So yeah, he was an easy pick. 5.6 million too. I don't think you can go wrong. And I'm not expecting weekly returns, but he offers a great way into their attack that doubles soon. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I really like him. I think he's I think when obviously they lost Elise, you're never going to replace him, but I think they've got as good a replacement probably as they're going to get, especially with the price tag. I think Palace done really well with the business, which they usually do, to be fair, don't they? That's why they sort of finished 12th every year. but no mocking there. There is good recruitment. Anyway, let's have a look at your final front three and your team as a whole, really, on the final slide as such. Here it is. So let's start with. Should we start with the main man himself, Erling, the robot, as he has returned to the lineup, or is it the first time we've had him all year? Might be actually.
No, I actually sold him going into game week 8, so I haven't had him for a very long time. But he's back. So I knew it from it. Actually, to be honest, from the moment that I sold him, knowing about the international break, I was almost set at getting him in for their run-in, irrespective of how they were doing in the league, which obviously hasn't gone how they hoped. But certainly I'm confident for the end of the season that he will score in not every game, but I'm confident in now getting consistent returns, and I think he's shown that in recent weeks. Nailed for minutes. I mean, he's ridiculous, and that Leicester game could be that could be a really, really high scoring match. I'm confident. Midweek, returning from international duty. So yeah, I think their remaining fixtures too look good, and this whole talk about a potential double as well, if that is to happen. But
I think they will double just because you'd expect them to go through in the cup.
Yeah,
they might get knocked out by Bournemouth. I'm pretty sure the team they play. I'm pretty sure they're pretty much destined to double. As well, and I think that'll obviously make him the best captaincy option as well that week, with obviously Salah only being in a single game week that week. So yeah, he looks good. And let's stick with the City asset, the other City asset, and then we'll obviously talk about Isak. Now, Marmoush is interesting to me. I get where you've gone there with the 12 points, but I think my concern slightly, and I'm interested in what you think of this, is just simply minutes. Like Pep rotation has been a thing in FPL for so many years now. Haaland sort of broke that curse in terms of he's sort of so good that he just plays every game, and he's obviously such a unique profile such that they can't really swap him out. But Marmoush, we have seen a bit of rotation with it. Is this sort of a bit of a punt in your team as such, potentially?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, again, talking of the short-term pick, I think it's a similar story to Rico Lewis, really, in that I'm not expecting him probably to play every single game for the rest of the season. He's probably more of a short-term option. I think that Leicester game is too appealing. And I think looking at the upside of attacking returns in that, if that ends 3-4-0, he's likely to be involved. I mean, aside the Forest game, where he didn't really feature, he sort of had a cameo, I think he's looked sharp in virtually every game he's played in, and I think he offers a real dynamic to the team that they haven't had. I think maybe arguably ever under Pep. I mean, we were saying this on the pod, weren't we? He's a really exciting player. I think he's brilliant to watch. And I just like the double up. I like going a bit differential, and I think having 2 City in there makes it interesting. It's certainly not. I'm not sure it's a long-term option unless we get clarity that they're going to be playing together consistently. I'm not convinced that they'll be my team for the rest of the season, both of them. But certainly for this game week, I think why not absolutely go for it. I think you've got to target the fixtures, so that's where I'm at with that.
And then, of course, the main man up front, the man that smashed your team up at the weekend, which everyone loved, let's be honest. Of course, that is Alexander Isak. Do we need to talk about this? But I think we probably do. Lovely fixtures coming up, on great form. I'm not even convinced, actually, that he was injured for the Liverpool game. I know there was the sort of quote-unquote injury concerns, but it looks like that might not have been a thing in the first place. But you've got to have Isak, haven't you, I guess? Is that your for you?
I'm actually, to be honest, I'm quite surprised that people have been selling him. And I know there are some issues around. Well, there was the talk obviously of his fitness, and he missed out the game against us away from home at Anfield. I think in some ways I can understand if you're looking at the upside of like a Haaland or whoever, but I just think their games are unbelievable. And that double against United and Palace, I mean, he could absolutely haul in that. It wouldn't surprise me. And he's probably going to be a prime triple captain option, depending on what happens with some of those doubles. I think similar to Mo, I just can't sell him. I'd see absolutely no point in it. I think unless he gets injured, he'll be a staple in my team for the rest of the season. So he's nailed on for me. So that really, all in all, is the team. Now there are obviously one or two potential options to switch around, but I'm near enough set, but there might be the odd change here or there potentially.
So is the question mark, because I know you mentioned with Sal that you might, and if Mateta's back, so say he plays in the FA Cup, is there potential you'll move Marmoush to Mateta and then maybe get somebody else instead of Sal, or is that probably the only?
I think my idea about it's hard, isn't it, with that? I think the idea with Mateta is that obviously they've got Palace the following game, bit of a fierce rivalry between there. We don't have to call it a derby necessarily, but I think that game that's always a difficult one to call, and I'm not sure about that necessarily in terms of from Mateta's point of view. I just like the idea of having Marmoush in there at least next week and potentially rolling a transfer and then kind of going from there. I like Mateta for the double. I think he's a good option, so that might be a move to make, is Marmoush to Mateta for 32. But I think with Leicester at home, if I know that Marmoush and Haaland are playing, I prefer the upside of going for a Palace midfielder and obviously Marmoush than the other way around. I'm not keen on any City midfielders, so that's probably the only reason. But yeah, I mean, at one point I was nearly set on triple captaining Mateta for those two away games, but I'm not so likely now, unfortunately.
Let's talk slightly about captaincy game with it. We are really early for this, and Haaland might get injured, and Salah might get injured, and that might obviously change it. Where right this second on the 19th of March, where do you lean towards?
Yeah, it's got to be on Haaland, right? It's got to be on Haaland.
I thought you were going to say Salah when you said it's got to be. That's interesting that you've gone for Haaland. Why is that? Just because Leicester's so bad?
I think so, and I think the Merseyside derby, all the talking point and speculation around Mo's future and all the rest of it to come with that, again, does make me slightly nervous. But that's not to say I won't. I've definitely got the vice captaincy armband on him for the time being. It's not so that I wouldn't. But I just think that Leicester game, they have just showed no fight. I don't think at all. I think they're nearly destined to go down unless obviously something massively changes in their squad or Wolves or whoever. I don't see them staying up. And I think this could be another nail on their road to relegation, really. And I like the upside of Haaland. And I think, we haven't had a Haaland haul in a while, right? And part of me does wonder if that could be coming. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Because it sounded you sounded more confident potentially in Mo. Where do you stand from that point of view?
Well, I might. To be fair, I might have done this, but truthfully, I'm actually on Haaland myself. So correct.
There we go.
Although we are, as I said, we are a long way off the deadline yet. So things may change, but Liverpool, I think, are slightly slowing down a bit, and I don't know. Leicester haven't been battered yet, which probably is reason to not maybe go with Haaland. But I think it's coming. Like the performance levels, I think it's coming. Like I said on the podcast today, that I felt that sort of Preston would have given Man United a better game. Like in terms of like the performance levels that Leicester are sort of tuning out. Not that Leicester's team's worse than Preston's, because it's not. It's better than Preston's, definitely. But just the so shot of confidence right now. I think I just think they're due an absolute trash in, to be honest. And I think obviously City are the sort of team that can perform one of them for sure. So yeah, I am sort of with you. But yeah. Thanks for joining us, Lewis. That is interesting, talking about your wild card. I think a lot of people will be on it, and potentially some people might copy this. So there we are. But yeah, I think you're also going to feature on the channel potentially a bit more in the future as well. So,
Potentially. But yeah, thank you so much. And obviously, all the best to those listening. Let's hope for some green arrows from the international break. I'm hoping for some big scores now. Hopefully, Bruno can carry on that good form in game week 29 into 30. Come on, let's hope for some green arrows.
But yeah, thanks then for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now, everybody.